So when it comes to considering purpose in life, I, like many others, thought that there was right and wrong. That there was one goal in my life, and there was one way to evaluate it. This was also the way how I approached discussions. Discussions were battles to be won. Throughout my life in educational institutions, at work, I've been trained to pick an argument and to fight for it, while disregarding my opponent, while not thinking of anything else than just scoring a victory. Yet, such an approach does not really work when we talk about identity, when we talk about diversity, when we talk about personal topics. And it also does not work when we're trying to figure out purpose in our life. I had this realization when I discovered the art of facilitation. 2 years ago, I started volunteering with a group of people that organizes summer programs for youth. The aim is to bring together 16 to 18-year-olds from different backgrounds, from different countries, of different ages, and from different socioeconomic classes. Last year at one such program in Bulgaria, I have met an Eastern European guy, just like me. It was this big macho, a bit bigger than me, and big homophobic. He was not really comfortable talking about sexuality and gender. He never really engaged with that topic before. Yet at this course, he had an option to engage with trans participants. He had an option to hang out and just be a kid with LGBT kids. Throughout this program, he engaged with all these different people with whom he did not engage before. After 2 weeks, he came up to me and he thanked me for opening his eyes during the gender and sexuality workshop and throughout other discussions during the course. A few months down the road, he messages on WhatsApp that he faces backslash in his community back home because he's defending gay people. This participant, until today, he keeps in touch. For me, as a gay man who faced bullying throughout his life and who got into so many discussions when I just had to defend myself and prove that I'm no aberration of nature, this was an eye-opener. How come that such big change could be achieved in 2 weeks? And it was not just this participant. There were participants who came in fearing refugees, who left with refugee friends. Now some of them are organizing a program that will bring refugees from detention centers in Belgium to their families, so they can hang out, they can be together, and they can get to know each other. How is this change possible? Well, it was possible thanks to the art of facilitation. Facilitation is a technique that attempts to hold and create spaces where everybody can share and learn from each other. It tries to break down the assumption of right and wrong. Instead, it tries to create spaces where we can learn and reflect on our own views through the lens of the other. This might sound a bit too abstract right now. So let's try it out. I will show you one of the workshops that our participants find most impactful. It's called Identity Circle. If you reach out into your folders, you'll find a little paper. There are 8 identity markers on it. And I will invite you to engage in this short showcase of a workshop. There are 8 identity markers. Check them out, see them, and I will say 3 short statements. And I will ask you to look at these identity markers and kind of instinctively choose which of them was most prominent to the situation that I'm talking about. Just try to pick it instinctively, and then you might reflect on it. So, first statement. Which part of your identity is most prominent right now at this very moment? Which part of your identity is most prominent to you at this very moment? You can write it down, you can just think about it. The next one. Which part of your identity gives you most privilege? Which part of your identity gives you most privilege. Don't think about it too much. Just pick what feels right. And the last, but not least, which part of your identity was most taught to you? Which part of your identity was most taught to you? In this way, participants, just like you, have option to reflect on themselves. They have option to engage with topics such as identity and diversity. Usually, in the workshop, this works slightly differently. We place these identity labels on the ground, we spread them out, and we divide the group into 2 circles. The first circle answers the statements by moving towards the certain identity marker that they identify with at that very moment. The group on the outside comes to the group on the inside, and they just listen. Them listening is not there. They're not there to question. They're not there to doubt. They're not there to ask, why did you make this choice? They're just there to listen. And as the participants on the inside are sharing why did they picked this identity marker at that very moment, they reflect on themselves. After one of these workshops, I've seen a young woman from South Asia to burst into tears because she realized that she's not the only one from lower socioeconomic background at her school. In her own words, she no longer felt isolated and alone. She felt like she was fitting in again. After another of such workshops, I've seen a group of 40 participants from 16 to 20 to spontaneously reflect on how they were being bullied during their school, but how that gave them a reason to bully somebody else. With each of these workshops, there's a new experience. There's a new learning process every time. And as you see participants change, thanks to the tools that you gave them, not because you forced them to change, but because they decided to use those tools that you gave them to change themselves, you change as well. This initial idea of me having one goal in life and one way to evaluate it started breaking down. Instead, I realized that there were so many ways to learn and so many things to learn in my life. I no longer thought that I need to set a particular goal. Instead, I realized that by setting a particular goal in my life and maybe setting on a purpose was too limiting for myself. I discovered that learning and improving for me might be the purpose. That I still have to improve and I still have to grow. That's why my chase for purpose and my purpose itself became about staying unfinished forever. Thank you.